This is PhantomElectricGhostYouTubeChannel, and we are live on our YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook channels with Earthling Soul Treasure for the first time on the show. We'd like to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And what we like to do is, before we get into the full interview, we're going to actually show a YouTube video of her work. But we do have a sponsor scrolling below, which is an iOS and Android app called Newsly, and they actually host a podcast. So if you support them, you actually can hear the podcast. Well, you get an audio version of the podcast that's kind of translated just to audio. And if you use the coupon code GHOST2021, and that's still right, you get 1 month free premium subscription. So you go to iOS store, look for newsly.me, use coupon code GHOST2021, and you can check out the podcast after as an audio only. So thank you very much for listening to that for a second. And now I also like to include the links to every artist that I have. So I've got your link tree coming up. And so just to let everybody know, you can't click it, but once it's actually produced, there'll be clickable links, and that'll be one of them. So just support the artist that we talk to. So the next thing I wanted to do is actually cue up the video. And maybe before we do a video, you can maybe do a little bit of an introduction of what this song, what project it's from, and maybe a little introduction for it.
Okay, so I actually wrote this song with a guy, Aidan Woods, who sent me the guitar for it, and we met and just clicked, and so this was a product of that, basically. He sent me it through really raw. Believe it or not, this is actually just recorded on the phone, but it was part of both of our healing journeys, I think, to cross paths and make this together. So then last summer, a couple of months later, I organised to go and shoot a video for it, which is in one of our local sort of areas. There's like a nice Thai garden, and we both really love yoga and meditation, and it just, how things fall into place shouldn't always be difficult. It all just felt right. It was easy. I have to say I had a really good time making it, and there was so many giggles. So this is just a spiritually uplifting song. A lot of the stuff that I write can often be a little bit lower frequency, and I tend to pull things offline again, throw them out as the mood takes me, but this one just grounds me each time, so it has stayed.
Well, that's awesome. So I'm going to actually kick it off, and we'll talk to you on the back side of it, and then we'll get into the full interview. So let me put you on mute, and then we'll actually get to the song.
Our roots are deep, I feel my feet. The kind of tingling cause I just find out how to meet the spark inside, and I am high on life. I feel my faith filling me up. It's overflowing like a shepherd's cup. You ask the angels, I'll never run and live. But how it's first come, all I know is my soul shines bright every day and each and every night. Any minute I'll take off and fly. I'm feeling free and I believe it's grace that gave me the bones of steel. I will try to share this love, 'cause there's enough for everyone. the spark inside, and I am high on life. Fill me up, it's overflowing like a shepherd's cup. Just as the angels, I'll never run and live. But oh, it's the bird's call. Oh, your song.
Back, sorry, from the video, and I wanted to be able to show a preview of what every artist sounds like. So I like to have a decent picture because it's we used to do an audio podcast and we couldn't do that, and so then people would be talking kind of without understanding what the artist sounded like. So I think it's actually good to be able to do that. So one of the things we like to do in our interviews is kind of get to the beginning of your story. So like when did you first get into music? At like what age do you remember being interested or taking part in music?
I have always been drawn to music. I mean, as a child, I would have stood with my microphone with I don't know if anybody remembers them. As a kid, they used to have like an applause button that you could kick, or a boo or whatever, and just zone out in the living room, make sure nobody was allowed in, closed all the doors, and was like, this is my space. And I have always enjoyed just singing, like it just is a release to me. I did music GCSE, and my music teacher, Miss Lyons, was just amazing. She was like, Rebecca, you need to write a song. Like I always enjoyed having wee chats and stuff, you know, just I think some people go to school and it's all like they're able to just step in and step out, whereas like I'm the sort of person who, I don't know, I just meet people and get vibes, you know, and it's nice to vibe with people. And she was one of them. And she showed me this studio that they had. Like nobody knew about this studio in the school. And
wow.
I was able to go in there, yeah. And I was just like, this is amazing. I mean, I used to play drums as well. So we would have gone to the music room and just had our lunch, me and a friend, and just played music, sang, played drums, just whatever. But yeah, I mean, putting all that together, I was like, wow, I didn't realize how easy this was. Like, I know that is all recorded very basically, but it sort of just makes us
Open your
realize
eyes.
like I mean, what modern life is like. We don't need all this expensive stuff just to like express ourselves, and the amount of goodness that we get out of like expressing ourselves in whatever form it is, like whatever art form. It's just it just like made me go, right, I can just keep on doing this whenever I need to. So I mean, I've played in bands over the years, and I'm just good at being by myself as well, so I don't think it bothers me when there's nobody else around to make it with me. I have like sample machines here and a ridiculous amount of instruments that I don't really play, but I'll pick them up for needs be, you know, and then somebody else will come along and say, what are you doing? And they'll want to help. So it always just falls into place. I probably should share more stuff that I've written, but I'm having a bit of like a cleansing period in my life, and it's nice to start afresh. I think people get very bogged down on sometimes the vibe of songs or like the words, and it is just a moment in time. So it doesn't bother me to just delete everything and start again, you know?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, some
So it is.
songwriters are kind of, it's hard, you know, for some people they kind of think of their songs like children, and they like, even if they don't put them out, that's a radical thing to do. I understand it. I've actually, you know, been recording since I was like 17. I'm 54. So there's
Yeah.
some periods where I said, well, no, I don't like any of that stuff, and I
Yeah.
kind of just put
Yeah.
it away. And at other times, it's like, oh, I really like that stuff I did 10 years ago. Maybe I need to work on that. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's kind of like you never know where you're gonna be. But you were mentioning that you play drums and you kind of hinted at other instruments. So is your voice your primary instrument, or are
Yeah,
you like
yeah,
that's your primary?
yeah. I mean,
Your
all the other instruments have literally just come to me, so I have been bought them or given them, or I remember like I've got this wee Spanish guitar, and I was like just listening to loads of Spanish guitar for a while, and I was like, it would be so nice to just have a
have
wee
one.
tinker with that. Yeah, and so I was walking down the road, and there's this guitar that afternoon in the shop, like, um, yeah, I like following my intuition and just went in and bought it. And there was a girl came in straight after for the same guitar, so it was obviously had some kind of magical vibe. But
Yeah,
I and the lady behind the shop, she was like, "No, it's gone, sorry." And I was like, "I feel so bad," but like, it's all
you
like
need it. Yeah.
manifestations are clear when they hit you up the face like that, you know. So,
Well,
yeah, I
actually,
mean, so what? Yeah, I've got lots of different instruments here. There's a kalimba. I have, like a range of guitars. There's of an accordion. Like it's all a bit random, but all
so
the
you like
different
a lot of
tones.
organic
Yeah,
acoustic instruments is what you like to
yeah.
work with.
I love like the hum and the vibration that you get off the different instruments. You know, like I could sit with the kalimba, and like several of my friends have actually bought one since I have had it out and been playing. They're like, "Do you remember that wee box with the bits
Yeah,
on it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I mean, if you look the history of them up, it used to be like a rock with bits of metal attached to it in like Africa and stuff. It's amazing. Or some people have them with spoons. But whatever, like all the different sounds are just amazing. And I love how even just one note in any instrument can just give you like almost like a picture, you know, or like
sound paintings. You know, like I was
mhm,
watching like a documentary about the Beatles, and specifically George Martin, and he was saying like, why did they record like Sergeant Pepper's? How did they get in this kind of using the studio as an instrument? And he said, well, I did Peter Sellers comedy records, and the Beatles actually liked what I was doing, and when I did those, I had orchestras, I had backward tape loops, I had all these things.
yeah.
And I said, what if I introduced that into a rock band? Really,
Hmm.
nobody had been doing that. No one ever had thought to take those kind of studio techniques and actually apply them to like a rock band. And that kind of is like the whole history of like a lot of rock music or pop music is that Beatles kind of style of what
Yeah.
George Martin and the Beatles did. You know, Pink Floyd did it, a bunch of other bands did it, Hendrix did it. There's just this idea that you could be more than your live performance. That
Yeah.
you could create like a sound painting. And he actually talked about sound paintings. That
Yeah.
you can actually use sound to make like cinematic type of pictures in people's heads.
Totally, yeah. I mean, I was watching, I wish I could remember her name, but she was on TED Talk there recently and it just popped up. This is how it all works, isn't it? And she was saying you can actually um, play a sound through like a healthy cell and an ill cell. And the healthy cell sounds just lovely, like a happy orchestra. And then
Mm.
the ill cell actually sounds like there's like the tuba is out of tune or I mean, it's the same as, you know, like people will have done tests over the years and it's like you put sand on glass or whatever and it makes like this beautiful, um, like a snowflake pattern almost or
Yeah, yeah,
something. Yeah, or water. And it's that to me is all the same. Like I just get a vibe off music. So my music's not like of one genre.
yeah.
I really love a lot of stuff. And I think somebody telling me that you could only have one genre for the rest of your life would just like I just
Yeah.
feel like
Well, I like to get into that because like if you notice what I do, like I call my like independent sound for all my stuff is expansive sound.
yeah,
And the reason I do that is because I love jazz, I like rock, I like punk, I like everything, right?
yeah,
And I've been playing for such a long time. I like to mix multiple genres, and then people track me down and say, well, you're electronic, you're techno." It's like, no, I'm
yeah,
expansive. What does that mean? That means one day I could do Sun Ra, next day I could do Johnny Cash. I could do the
yeah,
Pistols. I could do Pink Floyd. I could go and do Funkadelic. I kind of wherever I feel like doing, I'm going to do it, and I don't like
yeah.
getting pinned down. And
I
so I
know.
do understand. There's a lot of artists I've actually talked to, like 140 artists in the last 3 years, and a lot of people are trying to get out of that being pinned into a narrow lane. They
It's
don't. They don't
ridiculous. Like who? who came up with this? Like, who said we need to put them all in boxes? Like, that is just one way to restrict somebody, isn't it? Like, it's not the way of creation. Like, creation is you start one thing and then it's not procrastination, but it's like productive procrastination. So everything just goes off in tangents, and like that's the way a tree grows. So why would our creative flow not be like that? You know?
Yeah, even like when you do an album, you think about like the Beatles, they'd be all over the place, right? I always go back to the Beatles. But there's this thing today where, I got to stay in the same BPM. I got to use the same sound packs, use the same loops. It's like, it's so boring to me because you can see I'm like an analog modular hardware I'm a synthesis. And I love like Moogs and Prophets and stuff like that, not to be pushing any brand, but I like the idea that I can build a sound and I'm not stealing somebody else's sound. Not that people can't be cool with that, but I believe like analog synths are very much kind of like organic instruments.
Yeah.
I can get
it's not satisfying copying. Like, it's okay if you're trying to people please or give out like a certain vibe at a party or a function that you have to do music for, but when it comes to actually making your own, like, there's no point copying. You know, you just need to feel what's inside. I
think what happens is that you get DJs and then you get hip hop and then you get EDM, and there's this thing where people started using these tools that started cloning stuff, and then they're like, okay, people who were not traditionally musicians or more like producers can live in the box and they can do interesting things. And I can go back and see like the early hip hop out of New York City, right? Where like, stuff like, out of the Bomb Squad and all these different, they did some very interesting things with samples, like De La Soul. They do very interesting things with samples. So I understand producers can do really cool things, but I think some people get lazy.
Oh, totally. Here, I mean, I didn't make those samples that I'm messing with sometimes, but it's still going on a journey with yourself. So like to set out and be like, I'm going to write a song that sounds like this and have, another band in mind and all the rest. It's just not for me. Like I'll start doing it and then I'll feel like claustrophobic or something.
I think the singer-songwriter is who I've actually always focused on. I always like to get into the idea of like, one of the questions I have is like, you realize you had a talent for music, but when did you decide you're going to be a singer-songwriter, right? Because then not everybody who's a musician actually becomes a singer-songwriter. There's lots of people that are like session musicians. They go into orchestras. They write stuff that's like for, things, but they're actually writing their heart. The thing I like about singer-songwriters going back to the 70s, the Carole Kings of the world, all Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, the idea, the Neil Youngs, that you get a picture into it's like a novel. It's like a song painting. To me, when you get a songwriter that's really deep, you get like, it's like reading literature or something that's very substantial to me because it actually means something.
Yeah. We got to paint a picture, so and try not to want to scrumple it up and throw it in the trash at the end. It's so easy to do. But yeah, I mean, it is all just expressing. So once it's out, and then move on to the next one. And sometimes we go into these like flows where you can't stop. And then there's other times where it's completely bare and you're like, where have all the creative ideas gone? But maybe that's just time to appreciate other people's work and ground yourself, get one with nature. I love being in nature and just.
Do you get ideas watching, like just walking in the woods, because
just lying there watching the leaves blow, and I'm just like, I don't know, there's sounds that happen without hearing them, it's just, I mean, I actually,
you were out there in nature, and I kind of like the nature vibe of your video. Because that kind of made me feel, and I was kind of, one thing I like, I'm a big fan of Yes, and Yes actually did field recordings in a forest of the sound of the forest that's on their record, and I think it's kind of cool. Experimental musicians have always been very interesting to me. People would record glass, take a metal rod and throw it on a piano string, record that, run things through multiple tracks, to get weird. sounds.
Yeah, that wee video that played there was just like 2 tracks. So it was literally like he sent me through the guitar and he played it all in one piece live, and then I sang over the top of it, and that's it. Like there's no messing about. There was no sing one wee bit, another wee bit, another wee bit. It was just whatever. But there is another
Very
song. Yeah,
it's very
and
organic. Yeah, I
yeah,
like
I
it.
mean, whenever you go playing live places, it's not mistakes, but there's a realness and a rawness to things. So what is the point? I mean, it's nice to get a really good recording of things, but to me, that's like my diary. So it's okay if there's a little paint splodge out of place, because who's really going to know whenever it's your
Well,
art,
that's one thing. That's one thing I've always talked to like younger producers, and I think with that one thing in the box in the DAW in the digital audio workstation, one thing I think it's like really dangerous path is the path to try to make things perfect.
Yeah.
Because I always tell like younger musicians, I was hanging around with some guitar players, and it was like, you know, would you like think about like Exile on Main Street by the Stones? Would you really want to correct Keith Richards' guitar rhythm, right? The way he plays is kind of haphazard, and it's perfect. You know,
Yeah.
even like if you think about Neil Young on Tonight's the Night, there's a lot of stuff in there that feels very raw. It sometimes is out of tune. His voice is kind of scratchy out of tune, but it's real. It's like you said, it's a point in time, like a painter. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes people have forgotten some of the best music is kind of point in time, and you're never gonna recreate it exactly
Yeah.
like that. And it's kind of cool to let it be.
Yeah, this is it. Totally. Yeah. It's nice. Everything's raw, and anything that's perfect, I don't trust. There's always something, something you need to suss out first. So no, it's good. And like any of the covers that are up there as well, like they're just recorded live, and I mean, even in like the beauty industry and stuff, that it's all changing. Like they've got so many different races of people, shapes, sizes, and it's turning out nice. Whereas for years it was all,
Cookie cutter, you
stick
got to be
thin white people. Yeah, so, and it's just silly. Like it's like,
Richard Bardot kind of thing. You
what
got to
is
be like,
this? Yeah. So
yeah,
I mean, it's the same. We gotta just loosen all the tight straps and just have fun with it. And anybody else out there that wants to make anything just needs to go for it, because it's only music. Like, so what if it's
yeah.
weird or bad or whatever, like other people say? Like, nobody is ever gonna, not everybody's always gonna like you. So if we're gonna live on planet Earth, we may as well just make it easier for ourselves and just have fun.
I think it's like, the thing is, if you start, the reason I keep on doing music is I had guys that when I first started when I was 17, they all want to be Jimmy Page. They all wanted to be like, they felt like if they couldn't sound like Jimmy Page, they should just give it up. And
I
my
know
whole
it's
point,
nice to have aspirations, but yeah.
yeah, but my whole point was like, look at the Ramones. And then look at the Talking Heads, right? Look at like, Johnny Rotten and the Sex Pistols, or like Pete Westerberg from like the Replacement. My whole point with a lot of guys was like, you don't have to be like Genesis or Yes or these big bands that were like perfect, or like the Eagles, like perfect. Look at Ramones, look at the punk, look what's going on at CBGBs. And I would say, guys, look at REM. I mean, I used to love REM back before they got big, and you didn't understand what Mike Stipe was saying, but it was very melodic, really different. And I used to be a radio guy that would like run independent music, and why I continued this podcast, because I think it's really important to kind of show people everything that's out there, and
Yeah,
not the things that
totally.
are at the top. I started, really young, being into Lou Reed and the Velvets, right? Because I thought what he was doing with Warhol was super important. And nobody
Yeah.
really, liked it. But then later, like in the 90s, suddenly all these bands started saying they loved it. And I remember being in the 70s and nobody liked it.
Yeah. But this is the thing about being cool. Like, to go with the flow, we're losing out, missing out a whole chunk of the happiness. So no, it's good. And like even Sia, I remember listening to Sia from the day she was in 07, and I'm not a massive fan now. Like, I mean, well done her. I'm so glad she's doing well for herself. But I like the raw gritty stuff, you know, and yeah, it is amazing how like being pop or whatever can change things. I'm playing in a shoegaze band at the minute called Virgins, and
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that a little bit.
it's good fun. And it's so nice being able to sing and not have to be like changing my tone to like Mrs. Happy all the time. I can just be
You're the lead vocalist. You're the lead vocalist for Virgins. Like,
yeah. I'm the only vocalist, so yeah.
And then you have your solo career. So is the Virgin band like an active band right now, or is the solo project like the active
Yeah,
thing?
so we were away there, was it last weekend? All weekend, and then we've got a good few gigs coming up in the summer. This Thursday as well, we're down in Dublin. So yeah, I mean, it's good fun. The guys are really cool. We've all got our own idiosyncrasies, and it just, when you're trying to fit puzzle pieces together and everybody's totally different shapes, it's like, let's just
So do you go
see what way it turns out.
So everybody in Virgins, do you guys all have like your own bands or own solo projects? So everybody kind of just goes wherever they want, and then you guys come together to have a band unit.
I mean, yeah, everyone has their own thing going on, whether it be playing with other bands or whatever. But we're all like, we all go home and we geek out to whether it be singing, playing the guitar, drums, whatever it is we do. So, some people play multiple things and do multiple things. So they want to sing as well, but they were looking for a female vocalist, and I got that slot, and I'm very grateful. So it's good.
Well, that's really exciting because so you said like you did. So your voice was always like your primary instrument. Was there ever a time where you like wanted to be a drummer in a band? Because you mentioned the drums and kind of be that. Because the drummers, you know, not every drummer gets to be Ringo or gets to be like in the Eagles to be like a singer drummer. They tend to kind of get put in that thing, and then it's kind of take over and say, well, no, I don't think I want to be a drummer. I want to be a singer.
Yeah. No, I always wanted to be a singer. I was just a wee bit afraid that if I shared it too much, that somebody would say, oh, I don't like that, and then it would steal my joy from it. However, I have reached the point in my life where I don't care. And I'm just like,
that's the best place to be.
And you know what? See if I sang and everybody hated it, I'd still be enjoying myself. And I've actually got to that point. I was saying to the guys as well, like I used to get incredibly nervous, like so nervous that I couldn't eat for like a couple of days before, which really doesn't help whenever you're trying to go on and focus to do things, whether even for drumming. Like I was so nervous. I used to be called Klingon and just hold on to a trouser leg and not speak to anybody when I was a kid. I was always very quiet. So this, to me, like singing has helped me come out of my shell an awful lot.
Interesting.
And
one thing I always like to ask artists is I noticed that there's this kind of common theme. There's a lot of musicians that when you actually kind of, you know, get under the covers and talk to them about how they got to be who they are, right? It seems like there's like this other you, right? Yeah. That a lot of musicians are very shy. They're almost like painfully shy, but then once they get on stage, they can almost become like a different person. Like famous people like that, Michael Jackson, Prince. It was painful to talk to either one of them because they could be on stage and look so powerful. But if you actually want one-on-one talk with them, it was like pulling teeth. It's so hard to actually get anything out of it. They're very, very difficult. And because they were very shy and they just didn't have a good, so on stage, what I find even as a musician, I get into this zone. If I'm playing my keyboards, I play with a band, I don't even remember what I did. I just get into it's like I just become like
the music. Yeah.
And I don't think about anything else.
I'm just feeling it. Like I'm just enjoying feeling the vibrations of everything and just being there. Whereas before I focused too much on like getting it all right or how I wanted to sound, but then I put so much pressure on it wasn't fun. And I've got to the point where I actually don't feel embarrassed about a lot of stuff at all. I mean, I'm a complete introvert, but people don't see that. Like they'll call me an extrovert all the time, and I'm like, I go whenever I leave, I go home and I'm like back to my cat, sit and read a book or like just tinker about and create stuff. Like I just love making all sorts. Like I draw and all the rest as well. But yeah, I totally happy in my own company, but whenever it comes to being with people, like I put in-ear monitors in because I don't even want to
get the
sounds
feedback.
maybe a bit rude, yeah, but even with like the crowd, like whenever I'm here and maybe things going on or whatever, like I find like I can't focus. I just want to be
in the
like
zone.
just totally get in there and just forget about whatever else is going on. Yeah.
As a musician, I use the in-ear because like I'm trying to hear, because a lot of times the keyboard is like with a bunch of other things, and I'm trying to concentrate on not trying to overthink it, but I just want to know where I am in the mix.
Yeah,
and if I'm trying to listen to other stuff, it's like I can't focus on where I should be.
My brain's like grabbing out at all these different things, and I'm like, where am I? Like, we did a gig and I could not hear anything. So it got to the point where I was singing it and I was like, do you know whenever you have a thought and you're like, did I say that out loud? It was a bit like that. So I was like, have I sung that bit already? Because I was literally like singing, but all I could hear was like I could feel the vibration in my hand. Yeah. And but whenever you can hear and it's like being in a bubble and just floating above everybody and them just going and blowing you a wee bit further along. Do you know? It's nice.
Do you like the feedback of the crowd? Because one thing like during COVID that I've found is like some bands, some rock bands or bands that are like, have to play live. They're not like kind of studio creations. A lot of the members are kind of like, they feel like they really need the crowd. And what
the rest of the band feel like that, and I am the complete opposite. Like even whenever I'm just out singing by myself, I like to just be in the zone. And then whenever it comes to like having a wee break, I'll talk to everybody. I'm totally loving like even like hearing what they'll say and all the rest and how they felt. But I need to be just I just need to be by myself. Yeah.
In the zone, yeah. But I think that's interesting because I think that's kind of cool. Well, I think if you're a singer-songwriter, you kind of have to be like that, when you're a singer, when you're working on like individual stuff, and then when you get in the band, you have to be have more compromise. But that's why like the thing is interesting. Like when I'm just writing all my ghost stuff, I can just do exactly what I want. I don't have anybody tell me what. But if I go work with a band, like I do collabs, I might be some of the people I interview, I actually end up doing projects with. And I'm doing a couple projects. And then it's like, then I have to like, when I used to be in a rock band when I was like 17, it's like I come in and I have to, I might have the drums on my 808, but the real drummer came in and I have to like, okay, I'm going to defer to that because I think what he's doing is better. But then if I thought my 808 actually had something that he couldn't do, now we kind of push for it. And I think it was like the compromise. Like if you're in a group of 4 or 5 people, it's like you're working on something together and each one of you is putting something in. And then it becomes. So, do you like the dynamic of when you're like with the Virgins,
totally,
and then having the freedom when you're by yourself to do exactly what you want?
Yeah, I mean, I think I need both in my life. I was singing by myself for ages, and then this came up. A friend sent me it through that they were looking for a vocalist, and to be honest, it's a complete new lineup. So. The only person that's the same is one of the guitarists. The rest are all new as well. And I mean, we came up with a new song there the other night, and I just love seeing where the moment takes you. I think all you need to do is just be comfortable with people, and if it's not working, it's not working. But I mean, we're all drawn to each other because of who we are and what we give anyway. So most of the time, everybody loves what everybody else is doing, and then whenever I'm by myself, I start off doing it by myself, and then someone else will come in and be like, need a wee bit of something for that, do you? And then it turns into a collaboration. So I mean, I have done voiceover work and I've written like wee jingles for different things, and it's all grand having a specification, but it is just nice to be wild.
I always like the freedom to kind of I work on, sync licensing things, and it's not ghost stuff. But when I do my ghost stuff, it's like exactly what I want. But then it's like, I think it's cool, that's why I do the podcast, because I wanted to have, in this COVID time, since 2018, before even COVID, as I figured like being a solo musician and just being a bedroom producer, it's good to get connections. And I used to go to New York and play in the clubs in New York and go to Boston and stuff. But this has given me a way to still connect to musicians all over the world,
Yeah.
and then I don't just focus on my own work, because then I can actually hear different music that kind of like I get to hear new bands all the time and kind of really focus on what they're doing and new artists and emerging artists. And I think it's really important. And I try to focus outside of what's on the top charts. I want to hear what new people, what underground, what interesting things are happening because, like I said, I was working in radio as a college radio, and I always like to push, all the newest stuff I heard or read in Word or Rolling Stone. I said, well, if I see this cool band, they got 5 stars and nobody knows who they are, I'm going to play it.
Yeah. And the beauty is before we're influenced, isn't it? So all these bands are like, it's pre-influenced basically. And then whenever we start to get popular, it's like, what do we need to do to stay here? But and then things start, being a wee bit more contrived probably. But it is nice. Like I love going out here and bands, like local bands, and it just I do photography as well, so I'll just take my camera out and just zone out and just watch them getting into the zone. I don't know, it's just it all just is like it's just so
I guess
nice
I want
just to be in the flow.
We focused on the music, but you're a performance artist, so in terms of your performance, maybe you can describe what's your style of performance, or what do you do?
So I think I am very into like expressionism, or like just letting out whatever you've got in you. So I have done dance over the years. I have done like creating like photography, done a bit of modeling and stuff, and I really love just going with the flow. So I mean, when it's so wide, it's hard to even sort of
So it's kind of like a
choose
stream
where
of
to go.
maybe stream of consciousness. You just kind of, I've been like that.
I'm not the sort of girl I'm not very good at like paperwork or like sitting down
and
like at a desk. So
storyboarding it out.
Well, that to me is fun, but it's I don't mind that sort of stuff, but there's like a bunch of jobs that people do like 9 to 5 or whatever, and I just wouldn't be there like present, so I think it's my destiny to make stuff whatever it is, and also and show other people that they can make whatever they want. So I'm all about learning. I love like sharing skill sets and meeting up with other creatives, and one day maybe we'll do something that they do and I can learn from them, and then the next it'll be something that I do. Usually it starts out something that I do, and then people start opening up and sharing, because I think people can be very competitive and then there's no sharing done. But whenever we get over that and go, life's too short, have already reached the darkness, and then whenever you're coming out of the darkness, then you go, let's find all the other shiny people. And then like learning from each other is just mega. Like the amount of money you could spend on going to courses and you don't even have a one-on-one moment with people, whereas like just the universe brings us all together just at the right time whenever we need to experience something, doesn't it? So I just go with the flow and see what happens, and I'm never bored.
I think it's a good way to be. I mean, as a musician, I kind of let things take, what happens is like I put a vibe out there, and then like you said, sometimes people come to you, right? Yeah. So I put a vibe, people see it very experimental, and I'll get somebody say, I like that, and then they want to work with it. And then I like with that, I listen, I like them, and then I work with them. And it's kind of like me when I used to go to clubs in New York, and people would see what I did, and then after they come and talk to me, say, "Oh, can you put some Moog stuff on my album? Or could you put this rolling chord?" They like the way I was doing my rolling stuff, and they say, "Oh, okay, can you do that?" And it's kind of like you just get out there, and it's like musicians are like a community of art creative folks, and we get out there, and I try to encourage that. I've actually done like bedroom producer festivals on this platform with guests that I have. I've done
Mhm.
like twice where I've had like weekends, like a whole weekend where people did 20, 30 minute sets that, folks I interviewed and they just go and do it. And we just
Yeah.
present it. And then some of the people who did it actually went and worked with each other because
Yeah,
they
yeah.
heard
I
each
mean,
other and they
a
found each other.
world,
And it's,
yeah, a world without, I always think like a world without, I don't want to sound totally hippie here, but a world without money and just skill trade would be a very productive place to live, because everybody that likes getting stuff done would just, the flow would be constantly there. Whereas I think people find blockages and even meeting people. But once you've done a bit of work, people will know that you're capable of it, and then it'll all just flow. So just get out there and do whatever it is that calls you, I think, and the rest will just happen. Like skill trade is a good thing.
yeah, I
Yes.
think it's really interesting how you can kind of not be so, you know, trying to run it like a project manager. You can kind of let things, be more organic, kind of more of a kind of. I grew up in the '70s, so I kind of know the hippie aesthetic. But there's this
Yeah.
kind of thing of the kind of kids that would follow the Dead, or like I was the kind of kid that would follow Funkadelic, and I was
Hmm.
like, and why would I sit there for 3 nights in a row? Because like they had a scene, and every night sounded different, and
Yeah.
and I just wanted to go because I liked the vibe. And I liked
Hmm.
the kind of people that were showing up at the Funkadelic concerts, and I just like
That's a big
that's
bit.
what I like,
Yeah, yeah, that's it. I mean, you can go to places that look lovely, that have great food or have whatever on, but there's nothing like sitting in a room or an area with loads of creatives. Like it just, there's something like unicorny about it.
Yeah, I
You
just think
know?
it's very it helps your heart. I think
It
one of the things I
does.
always ask musicians, like a lot of musicians, like I ran into some people, I don't think they were like true musicians and that they stopped because I think like a true musician doesn't care if it makes money. They will
Yeah,
go and
yeah,
no matter what. They will go and play for free or they will go do this, do that, just
yeah.
because they just love to play.
It
Uh,
needs to be done.
yeah, and I just felt like, I just kept on going where a lot of friends that got married or their girlfriends told them to throw their guitar away or get rid of their stuff because it's in the way. And like, I never did that. It's like, all my
The
stuff is
wrong
right here.
person. That is not your person.
Yeah, I got all my stuff in my bedroom, but they never got rid of it.
Yeah.
And it just is because they're like, they're like my children. I'm sorry, but my keyboard kind of talk to me. I
Yeah.
let them talk to me. Like people say, well, that's kind of no. It's like if you talk to a lot of keyboard players, Bernie Worrell used to say his Moog talks to him.
Hmm.
As the guys in Yes would say, like, yeah, their instruments talk to him. You kind of got to listen. And like Hendrix said, sometimes he would like he couldn't stop playing because he was trying to. The universe was giving him something, and he couldn't stop.
Yeah.
Right. So he would just like keep on going. And he was playing like the Isley Brothers one time, and he was writing a song with them, and then suddenly something came to him, and he put it down, and they were like, "That has nothing to do with the song." I said, "What? It came to me. I couldn't let it go."
Yeah, exactly. This is it because I think we do go through like dry spells, and it scares me because I'm like, where's all my thoughts gone? But I do think it's just energy just building up like a volcano, ready to erupt again. We got to recharge. Like we're all just human beings, like plants growing. It can't be in flower all season. So, no, it's amazing, and that's then the time to go and sit with other creatives and just. Do you know what? Creatives have the best stories as well. Like their life story just amazes me, each and every one, and that's the fuel, isn't it, really?
Well, I think it's kind of like I kind of started like in romantic poetry and the Harlem Renaissance poets, and then I realized I could actually take poetry and turn it into songs.
Hmm.
But I love William Blake, like
Yeah.
Tiger Tiger, Beautiful Life Cemetery. I like the simplicity of his romantic poetry, and a lot of his romantic poetry you can use it as a kind of basis of how you could write a song. And I always felt that the idea that the Victorian poets had was like there was this muse, this universal thing that you tapped into, and you would kind of pull it. And then I
Yeah.
like to be able to kind of hide things in like, like not say directly, indirect references of how you can get away with, talking about sex but not talking about it. But
Yes.
so you could so I always like, well, that's cool. I like the way that I kind of hide my true intent with all this layering, and
Yeah.
and it's just it's just something I think every musician kind of pulls into that, whether they realize it or not. They're kind of pulling this as muse or universal thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's an ancient art, isn't it? Song and humming, and you think about the Vikings and all the other types of
Celtic
people that would have, yeah, exactly. And even like calling into animals, with that, it's like a wild high pitched scream. There's videos of people living out in the countryside and they're like calling the cows in. I'm just like, this is my world.
Yeah, well,
So
there's something
yeah.
like, like I'm part Cherokee and Blackfoot Native American, and there's this whole thing about the oral history, within Native Americans is very kind of musical,
Yeah.
and it's very poetic, and I like to use it, and because it's just something that I can kind of tap into, and it's like, I think anything that you can bring to your art, when you're a musician, a lot of us, whether we want to or not, like, amateur, like into video. I do video production, but I wasn't trained on it. I would do art, but I wasn't trained on it. I think we like to mix our different, types of art.
Yeah.
And it kind of inspires us to kind of create something. So I can totally get into what you're doing as a performance artist, because I think every musician, when you stage, you're doing some theater.
Yeah.
You're kind of doing that Bowie, Lady Gaga thing. You kind of are that other
Yeah.
person, right?
I
So you
think
kind
I think like the word performance is very misleading in a way, because there's when you're really performing and you're really there, there's no performing being done. It's all just being in the moment. And like I wonder sometimes, where did speaking come from? Because it's all very stopped and started and there's breaks in between and it's all very like blocks, whereas singing is like elongates every second of the
poetry,
moment and just brings you to be at one with your surroundings, wherever you are. Like nature doesn't make strict sounds, everything twinkles and drifts off, and
yeah.
in and out, yeah.
Well, I think music is like, to me, is like the primary way I like to communicate. I'll actually talk to people in songs.
Yeah. Here, there's so many things that you can say through art that you would never be able to say to
Yeah,
people's
you can
faces.
you get the courage to actually, confront something
Yeah.
that you might have a hard time actually putting into a novel. But when
Mm-hmm.
you're a songwriter, you could actually put something really deep and personal, and somehow you're like, wow, did I really reveal that to the world? But I just like,
I
okay,
know.
that's what it is.
It's a massive manifestation tool as well. Like the amount of times that I've sung a song, even not something that I've written, and manifested something like very spookily out of it, or written songs that I haven't even shared, and it's like sending out a spell to the universe and
Mhm.
it hears you every time, so prayers, this is it, like prayer through music. It doesn't always have to be like singing about good stuff, you can confess or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what one of the things I kind of get, like, in the popular culture, like you sing about like romance, you sing about like whatever, people talk about like how much they have or how much, how good they are, kind of braggadocio type of stuff. But like if you think about singer songwriters, and I always loved Lou Reed because he's a total poet. He talked about the underbelly of New York, right?
Yeah.
All the Velvet Undersongs are like super dark. They're talking about addiction, talking about like all kinds of things that are not pop music.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
thought, and it kind of inspired the whole alternative, like indie rock movement, because they would look at what the Velvets did and say, "Oh, I don't have to talk about how my girlfriend left me. I can actually
Yeah.
talk about something deeper than that. I can go into different things, and I don't have to be limited. I can do an 18-minute song that's all noise.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
could, I can have these kind of Andy Warhol images behind me because I was like, I can work with a guy like an Andy Warhol, or even think that, oh, I could do that. I don't have to be
Yeah.
trying to make something pretty. I can actually make it more real.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it is all just cleansing, isn't it? Cleansing energy, washing it away, making music. And I mean, tidying starts off very messy, so just make a mess. And then at the end, it's like, everything's in its rightful place.
Well, I think what's the cool thing about the world today, outside of record labels, is you can you can put anything you want out as a creative person, and then somebody's gonna find it, right? And
Yeah.
where if you were limited into those lanes we were talking about, like, oh, you have to do like a 3-minute song with this 160 beat per minute, and it's got to be in this key, it's got to be this.
Mm.
Like, no, you don't have to do that, because I could put something out and somebody in Thailand likes it, or somebody in Tel Aviv likes it, or somebody in Botswana likes it. I didn't know they were going to like it, but they like it. And it's like, I
Yeah.
just put it, and the audience finds you. And so you don't have to be limited to, oh, I just have to do what's in the top 10 this week, and that's all I can do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Nope, we gotta be wild and free. For sure.
I think so. It seems like I always get into these questions about like workflow process and what you can do, but it seems like even if you're using like the modern tools, you seem to be the kind of person that's not going to obsess about trying to make it
Yeah,
perfect.
I mean, I've got all the gear here. I can run different tracks and do layers and sit and fanny about on whatever, but I just want it down and done, and then I'm happy. Like I love listening to my live music. I love going out and like somebody bringing a guitar and it's just having a wee sing song, and it just reminds me of all that. Like even having a bit of chittering on live recordings and stuff at the end and the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, do you know, like after you get through a song with somebody that maybe you've never played anything with before, and at the end of it, you're both like having a wee giggle or having a wee
Yeah,
chat.
yeah.
Like that to me is like, I know it's not part of the song, but it's just as
It's
important.
gold.
Like,
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
and yeah.
If you think about like the songs in the 60s and the 70s, I love to
Mm-hmm.
listen to old stuff. I would listen to like a Todd Rundgren album,
Yeah,
right? And he's a famous producer. And there, if you listen to it on the headphones, there's all kinds of errors.
yeah,
There's like tape clipping where things are like a little bit off. There's
yeah.
like people talking. You can actually hear people talk on some of like Hello It's Me and stuff. You can actually hear people, telling chord
And that's
changes and stuff, like low in the
it's
mix,
good.
and you're like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So you're like that's cool, because it's like they didn't feel like they had to cut it out. I'm
yeah.
like, but it's there, and it kind of shows it's like, it can be beautiful without being perfect. Um,
Yeah,
and it's actually the little idiosyncrasies of somebody like talking at the end, or coughing, or having a little cut here, or changing the key by accident, but then keep it. Um,
yeah,
I think that makes the song, and the people who obsess about trying to get the 109th take instead of
yeah,
taking take 3 or 4, even take 1,
yeah, yeah.
because like take 1 or 2, to me, what happens as an artist, in my opinion, is the further you go down with the takes, the less honest you are with the song.
Totally. I will do usually like as many versions as I feel comfortable with, but most of the time I'll go back to the first one because it was the most free flowing, even if it wasn't where I expected to go. I mean, making mistakes is all part of it, and then the correction is where the creative stuff comes in. So I could sing that song again and again and not make the mistake or fix it from the beginning, but then it's like it's lost. It's like,
Yeah.
like there's no point doing a cover and singing it exactly the same. Whenever you just wing
Yeah.
it, it's so much more fun.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes like I've heard that like bands, like I recorded the vocal on my phone, and then I tried to do it like on a really good mic. I went and found place to do it on like a $1,000 mic. And then I found that my actual audio recording on my phone was actually better.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, then I felt like really bad that I went and spent the money to do it on the $10,000. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's like that. It's like it does. You like Jack White. He used to use a plastic guitar, a $100 Sears guitar,
Yeah.
and he'd be
But
at these
then
people
after
obsessed.
this stuff, like people are trying to replicate the noises and all the rest, you know. So yeah, who cares, you know? Just get it done
You can use
and have fun.
a cast. You can use a
Mhm.
Casio. You can use a, the Kings famously. How really got me. It was a broken amp that made
Mhm.
that sound,
Yeah.
and actually trying to fix it made it not sound the way the song sounds, and actually
Yeah.
keeping the broken amp actually made the song. And
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
always, there's tons of examples where if you technically, you shouldn't use that broken amp because it's broken, but maybe you should because
Yeah.
it's the sounds. Like it's not always. It's like if I think somebody was saying, like, you go to Berkeley and your professors tell you this, but then as soon as you leave, you break everything they told you. Right? You don't do anything they told you to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. I mean, sure, is it China or Japan, they have like, it's like golden glue. So like every time they break a cup or a plate or whatever, they glue it back together, and it's so much prettier after that has happened, you know. And maybe it's all just a big metaphor for our souls as well, you know. Like the more messed up it is, the more interesting and beautiful, you know. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's like the more chaotic something is sometimes, that you feel the chaos theory is like, if you let things just be, right? You let it happen. You kind of like you say, it's just gonna happen instead of
Mm-hmm.
trying to obsess about, because like sometimes like your directional thing that's telling you to make something perfect is actually wrecking the beauty of something you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think as a musician, what happens is you start to trust yourself. The more you get into songwriting, I think you start to trust your instincts and say, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And, some people, maybe they can't and they have to have producers help them, and that's fine. But I think if you're a singer songwriter, you're kind of in it, like your zone. I think what you do is
Yeah.
you trust your intuition.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing better than going into a studio and having a really good like sound man, you know, just and that's nice. But it's not everything, you know. But it is nice, and yeah, yeah, it's good. And they are an artist of their own kind as well, you know, being able to sit and do that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Being a
Mhm.
recording engineer, it's its own art. It can
Yeah,
change the nature of your song. You can actually, because it's like it's an art. They win Grammys because
totally.
it's its own thing. And so yeah, if you have the opportunity to get on like a Neve board from 1974 and an engineer that knows how to use it, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. That you could create something really fantastic. Or even if you got a modern guy that has all this stuff and he knows how to actually pull it in. But
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm kind of, I like the analog stuff. So if
Yeah.
somebody had
I
the
mean,
Neve board, I would go with that.
yeah, and it's personality as well. Like people can have the best equipment and all the rest, but whenever they're not able to gel with the, you know, the
Yeah.
artist as well, like there's no point. So no, there's definitely an art in that as well. So I don't mean to take away from any of that, but
No, you
yeah,
could
I
just have
just
like a Fostex 4 tracker and a guy that knows how to do it, and he could
mm,
sound better than anything.
yeah,
You
yeah,
you could just be on a 16 track old piece of equipment and it's noisy and it doesn't, it's not the best thing you could do, but the guy has
yeah,
that it's going to sound fantastic, and you don't have to be paying
hmm,
tons of money because he just knows what he's doing. And so
yeah,
yeah, it's kind of like it's hit or miss. Like depends on where you are, like where you are with your song, and the people you find to help you get that,
yeah,
make it
yeah.
better.
Hmm.
That's where
There
I
needs
think,
to be the desire. Yeah.
that's what it is, because it doesn't have to be perfect to make it better. It just has
Hmm.
to be the right person.
That's it. That's it.
Well, we're at the hour mark. We kind of like to just have a free form conversation, and I hope you thought that was cool. And
Yeah.
this will be out on all of our channels as permanent links, and we'll send it to you. And it also will go to Spotify within an hour. We are in their beta program, so it goes to their video podcast program, and we'll share that with. And hope your fans like it. And we
Yeah.
tend
Thanks
to
for
get
having me. It was good.
yeah, and I want everybody to just also remember to hit the link tree below. In the podcast itself, there'll be a permanent link, and always check out, favorite, subscribe, download all the material you can find for Earthling Soul Treasure and Virgins, or are you when you want to find Virgins, they're called BandofVirgins, right? If
Yeah,
you
on
were trying to find,
Instagram. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. So
You
just
type that into the internet and a whole load of stuff comes up.
you might know that was right. Yeah, but I think it's just really important to support musicians. So like, please download, subscribe, favorite playlist. It's just very helpful for the future of music is to make sure people realize that you are listening to the artist. Thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.